All right. Marketing research. Very interesting topic. Many companies do not utilize this well, or they should do more of it. I mean, if we were to talk about research, as a manager, we want to make the best decisions possible, right? And the more data we have, the better decision we can make. Information is power. Information is king. And it really does surprise me how many managers out there still make decisions based on what they think is right and not what the market tells them it is right. So when we are talking about the marketing research process, there are 5 main steps to the marketing research process. Okay? Goals and objectives, designing the type of study, collecting the data, analyzing the data and developing insights, and the action plan. Now, before we go in and talk about each one of these steps, pretty much at any one of these steps, if you screw this step up, everything else afterwards is non-salvageable. If you do step 1 well and step 2 well, and you screw step 3 up, the whole process from step 3 to the end is shot. A lot of times this is not done well, and therefore any ideas and plans that come out of the data analysis, they do the analysis, they overstate the insights, they create plans that really don't represent the data. Lots of issues with marketing research. Marketing research pays very well. It's done by a specialized set of individuals, and it's really worth the money to do it well. So first, we need to talk about defining what we need. And depending on our specific research questions, will be a function of how we collect the data. So think about it this way. If you're going to build a house, and you want to build a house that's made of brick. Well, if we're talking about a house made of brick, we probably need more cement and cement tools and bricklayers and brick cutters, and you need those sets of tools to make a house versus brick. If you want to make a log cabin, okay, we have a different set of tools to make a house that is specifically a log cabin style. Market research is the same way. So let's take a look at some of these different ways and different tools. Right? So when we're designing the research, we have to talk about the different types of data and the different types of research. Okay? In step 3, I'm combining step 2 and step 3 a little bit here. So, secondary data and primary data. Secondary data and primary data. These are different types of data. All right? One is not necessarily better than the other. They are different. And there are advantages and disadvantages to each one. Primary research is research that doesn't exist. Okay? There's a research question out there, and there's no way your company decided there's something you want to know. And you want to know this, yet there's no way to find the data to answer this question. That data does not exist. You have to create the study to answer the question. This is primary research. Secondary research is data that already exists from normal business operations, or it's data that you can buy. So census data is data we can get from the government. The government collects all this information, and they actually, at a very modest cost, or sometimes even free, gives this data to businesses. Sales invoices is data that is created from the normal operation of businesses. You may have questions like, well, how well are we doing in Florida? Well, we can go back to the sales invoices and look. We can get data off the internet. We can buy books. We can buy journal articles. We can get syndicated data from IRI Nielsen, or other marketing research companies about a particular industry, about consumers, about products. We can buy data. It saves time, relatively inexpensive. Most of the disadvantages are it may not answer the specific question at hand, and you have to do some vetting if the data source is actually a good one or not. Primary research is stronger. It's more expensive. It's very time consuming. And it may only answer one or two very narrow specific questions. These are interviews, surveys, experiments, focus groups. These are primary data collection techniques. Okay, we're staying in step 3 because this is a very, very key slide. So everybody go like this with your fingers, okay? I want you to remember that. It's just something for you to do, because when you are in a meeting and someone is talking about data, I want you to remember this conversation. Think about this as exploratory, and think about this as confirmatory, not conclusive. There are exploratory research questions, and there are confirmatory research questions. Exploratory research questions are, you have a question and you don't know what the answer is. As a matter of fact, you really might not even know what the research question is. So, there's consumers down in Florida, but you don't know anything about the Florida market. This is an exploratory research problem. This is primary data, exploratory research problem. So we could go down to the stores and do observational studies and see what people are doing in specific aisles and specific stores. We can do focus groups. We can do some monitoring on social media for the Florida customers. We can do in-depth interviews. These are usually one-on-one. This is usually with a group. In all of these techniques, we are exploring a particular phenomenon without even knowing the explicit research question or the answer. This is exploration. Conclusive or confirmatory research, we know the question, and we may even know a couple of the possible answers. So we might do an experiment to see if it's A or B or C. We might do a survey to see if the answer is A, B, or C, or which preferences consumers really prefer. We may go to the scanner. We may look at panel. Panel means there's a pool of subjects out there, like Amazon's Mechanical Turk or Zoomerang, or there's a couple other companies out there that have panel, where there's 30 million customers in the particular panel, and you take a random sample of those. See, a couple other things. Exploratory research tends to be qualitative, and your responses are in words. Conclusive research tends to be quantitative, and your results are math. These tend to be very small sample sizes. These tend to be individuals, a dozen or two. These are small sample sizes. These can be very large sample sizes, and these can be random samples. These can be generalizable to a very large population. Qualitative exploratory, you can't generalize. Meaning, just because you talk to 12 people and you hear things that you really like, that doesn't mean your entire 1.5 million customer database is going to fall in line with what these 12 people did. You're only exploring a theme here. If you do focus group and you find 3 really interesting themes amongst these 12, well then you should go and take those 3 themes and do a large-scale survey with like 10,000 customers and see if in fact we can confirm that these 3 themes are the most important things for your customer base. And perhaps you find out that one of them clearly is, but the other 2 kind of crapped out. So what do? You take the insights from the one, you take the 2 that kind of didn't work out all that well, and you go back to explore further. Maybe you do it in depth, or you do some observation, or maybe you go back to another focus group. and you explore those 2 that didn't work out really well, and then you find out that really those 2 are 4, and you didn't define them enough. You take those 4, you go over and do another large-scale survey with like 15,000 random customers from your database. And you find out that A and B are good, but C and D are not. So you go on with the information from A and B, and you take C and D, and you go back to the exploratory, and you probe further. And you found out that C and D, that C is not really all that interesting. And it's really D that is. And then you take D and you find out that D really is another 4 things. And you go back and you do a confirmatory study. And this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between exploring and confirming and exploring and confirming, this is the way insights are developed. It's a non-stop process. And really good companies that are market-oriented, that want to go out and find out about customer behavior and competitor behavior, are constantly doing this yin and yang. Explore, confirm, explore, confirm, explore, confirm. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, all right, we already talked about exploratory, we already talked about conclusive. Exploratory methods, observation, social media, indefinite do. We already did this one. This is a confirmatory technique, and this is probably how I can describe this best. So this is a survey. When I say your responses are math, please rate the importance of the following shampoo attributes: price, fragrance, ability to clean, dandruff control. So these 4 items might have been 4 themes that we uncovered in the exploratory data collection. And then we're going to come in and we're going to find out that the mean of price is 4, the mean of fragrance is 2, the ability to clean, the mean is 4.6, and dandruff control, the mean is 1.2. So based on those insights, it's price and ability to clean with not so much fragrance and not so much dandruff control. That is an example to confirm insights that we learned. And we use math. This is very large scale. We were able to do means, standard deviations, and wonderful kinds of regressions and all kinds of statistical techniques. Let's talk about this thing up here. What are the most important characteristics for choosing a brand of shampoo? Ooh, this is an exploratory question. They're calling it unstructured, but this is an exploratory question. What are the most important characteristics for you choosing a brand of shampoo? You ask this kind of question in an exploratory data collection effort. You ask this question to 15,000 people in your customer base, and the response is it's going to be a mess. How do you even rate that? You're going to get, I don't know, sentences, words here and that. There's no way to put them on a scale. This is a faulty design, to be direct. This is not a very good question to be putting it in a survey research kind of a scenario. And this is one of my main takeaways that I want you guys to get out of marketing research. Be very conscious when you're in future marketing research or data insights meetings that they're not using an exploratory study to then make decisions like it was a confirmatory study. This is a major flaw. It would be the equivalent of Apple coming to Seton Hall University and doing a marketing research study with 12 students and then making a $4 billion decision based on the opinions of 12 people from one city, all ethnically and socio-culturally all in the same group. There's no diversity in the sample. There's no diversity in geography. The sample was not random when it was selected. And you can't use an exploratory data effort to then have confirmatory insights. It's a fatal flaw. And I bet you it happens 50 to 60% of the time. Because executives think they're doing data collection. and they're doing a focus group, and they hear things that they want to hear, and they just go with it. And it's a fatal, fatal, fatal flaw. So I do need to make a special comment about web surveys. Okay. As with the internet is changing everything. And the internet has the ability to be both qualitative but also large in scale. So we could go into Twitter and we could do a qualitative study within Twitter with 1 million customers. And we were never able to do this before. We really weren't. The difference is, though, don't let the size of the sample or the numbers confuse you with regards to whether it's still exploratory or it's still confirmatory. Using Twitter is not a random sample. You're not confirming anything. You're still exploring. I don't care if you have 1 million people. You still need to test if the insights that came out of that exploratory large-scale study is still representative of your sample population. So in experimental research, this is another confirmatory technique. All right. And broadly speaking, we call these A/B tests. Really, ABC tests are better, but A/B tests where you want to develop a new something and you have one group of customers or one group of subjects be exposed to a treatment and another group exposed to a different treatment, like original versus new, and you actually run an experiment, A versus B, and you see if there is a mean change between what we're currently doing and our new idea. If you do and there's no mean change, like on a scale of 1 to 5, the original is still a 3.5, and on a scale of 1 to 5, the mean of the new is a 3.8. Statistically speaking, there is not a significant difference between these two. And the new idea isn't that much better than the original idea. So you should go back to the drawing board and you should make the new idea better. And you might have to go back to do qualitative, and you might need to then retest again to see if you have the original at a 3.5 and maybe the new one becomes a 4.4. And then there is a significant difference between A and B, and we can go forward. This is called experimental research. So in step 4, we analyze the data and we develop insights. Now, there are many, many mistakes that can be made in the analyzing data. The biggest one is researchers will analyze the data. They will create insights that are not supported by the data. They make a leap beyond what the data is saying. They think the data is actually stronger than what the data is saying. And you need to be an expert to be able to see this stuff. But just stick your antenna up there just to see, when you're in these meetings, do you think the insights are accurately supported by the data? If you ask yourself that question, you are 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone else around the table with you. And finally, based on the data, the analysis, and the insights, you create an action plan. And the plan should look something like this. There has to be a 1-page executive summary because we know our bosses don't read anything anymore. So there's a 1-page summary, and then you talk about the study, where the data came from, the research question, where the data came from, what techniques you used, what were the findings, what were the insights, here are my conclusion. We'll always talk about limitations because every study has limitations or flaws. And then in the back of the paper, you include any supplemental material, like i.e. description of the sample or the clients that help you collect the data, tables, figures, appendices, and all kinds of good stuff like that. Marketing research is a very, very powerful tool. I really hope that your firm has a systematic, ongoing data collection process that is helping develop insights for you to make better decisions. Thanks.